Do you like Vaporwave? Do you enjoy a feeling of nostalgia for a place you've never been and could never have possibly been? Do you like whiskey? Do you like an assortment of weird, interesting characters that talk about whiskey? Do you like murder?
Paradise Killer
Is an open-world murder mystery game from a small team of developers that clearly had a very specific aesthetic in mind, based on a very specific set of ideas and experiences. And I mean aesthetic. Look at this world. Listen to this soundtrack. Be in this futuristic, otherworldly, but somehow retro and comfy environment, while your character, Lady Love Dies, is here from millions of days in exile to solve a mystery and find a killer. The player is encouraged to explore, examine, and just exist in this world. Buy a canned coffee, have a long walk, read some very charming flavor text, have a chat with this asshole. The mystery itself is easy to put on the back burner while you take in the surprisingly expansive world and collect items to make your gameplay and experience more rich and enjoyable. A game session will make you want to drink, something chilled and relaxing for your oddly chill experience of trying to track down a violent criminal. The Japanese influences are clear, from the vending machines and collectibles to the aesthetic of places like Bar Knife Through the Heart, an in-game location that reminds me a lot of one of my favorite bars on earth in Kabukicho. I spoke to Clarke Smith, one of the founders of Kaizen Gameworks and head writer from Paradise Killer. I mainly focused on the drink and general Japanese inspiration of the game, but couldn't help but ask a few more general questions. How did you decide to make vending machine drinks and whiskey such a big focus in this universe?
We all come from traditional game development when your creative input and ownership is very limited. So for Paradise Killer, we wanted to focus on the things that we love. The very first concept for Paradise Killer was based on a murder mystery set around the Yamanote line in Tokyo. Over time, the game developed into the fantasy world that we have now, but we always wanted to make sure it had the feeling of exploring Japanese streets. The vending machines were one of the very first things we implemented. Normally, you don't implement side content first, but we were passionate about them, so they went in. From a player's perspective, vending machines create a good landmark and a small objective when you see one, so they aid in exploration. For the whiskey, one of the original ideas for another game that didn't get made was to have scenes where people drinking whiskey in a bar would narrate the story. We kept that for Paradise Killer, and they originally triggered at key story moments. This didn't work because the game is so non-linear that we turned them into collectibles fairly late in development. Co-creator Phil Crabtree can't stand whiskey. Rach only likes certain types, but I'm a big fan of Japanese whiskey, so it was something I wanted to include.
What are some of your favorite whiskeys?
I'm not amazingly well versed in whiskey, but I started enjoying them when game artist voice actor Rachel Noy bought me a bottle of Nika from the barrel. I fell in love and have since tried a few more. I enjoyed a nice bottle of Hibiki, Yamazaki 12-year, and Toki. A pro tip for anyone who goes to Japan. The Don Key store sells Akashi whiskey, which is delicious. They sell it for around 1,500 yen, I think, but it's 3 times that price in the UK. Get one and leave it in your hotel room for a nightcap during your stay.
Do any of the in-game whiskeys have real-life counterparts? I tried to guess, but it was pretty tough.
They don't have any explicit real-life counterparts because I didn't want to look like we were copying them, and I also wanted to make their descriptions more bizarre.
What are your favorite canned drinks in Japan, regardless of alcohol content? Were there any that made a strong, no pun intended, impression?
All canned drinks we drink in Japan tend to be alcoholic. When we head back to the hotel at the end of the day, we always stop at a convenience store to get some booze. Our favorite beer cans are Kirin and Sapporo, but we also like these 3% fruit-flavored cans. For soft drinks, we usually go bottle drinks so we can carry them around more easily as we roam around the streets. My go-to is usually green Dakara, but on our last trip we discovered Metz Lychee, and that is mind-blowingly delicious. The description for bizarre lychee in Paradise Killer is based on when Rachel and I were wandering along a riverbank on a scorchingly hot day and found a vending machine with Metz Lychee in it.
Is the Evening Haze your version of the Strong Zero? What are your thoughts on Strong Zero?
Yes, it is. It is called Evening Haze, and the description talks about how dangerous it is because I didn't realize it was 9%, and downed some like I'd downed beers and had a very hazy night after that. We love Strong Zero and try to sample as many flavors as we can when we visit Japan.
How did you come up with your descriptions? Were they a group effort? We're lovers of flavor text here, and there's some pretty great ones.
I did them all, and I find the best way to do them is to do them under pressure to a tight deadline. The collectibles for the whiskey drinkers came in late in development as they slipped down the priority list, so I had to get them done in a very short amount of time. It really helps to focus you. The actual descriptions came about from reading a bunch of stuff about how whiskey is made and the types of flavors found in different brands. Those details help ground the whiskey, then there is always a twist with a bit of weirdness. Where does the weirdness come from? Great question. I think it is just how I write. I like non-traditional writing, some of which is intentional, some of which isn't. For example, Welcome to Night Vale is very intentional and very funny. But I also love the otherworldliness of translated PS1 and PS2 games that either have constrained or rushed translation. I think that's twisted my perception of what good writing is.
When designing your drinks, did you start with your drinks and write in world building, or did the settings create the drinks?
The rule for our collectibles is that they must always be in service of the world and not define it. The characters, story, and mystery are the most important parts, so we start with those, then let the collectibles either fill in gaps, add more mystery, or supplement an already established trait.
Have you been to Golden Guy? Bar Knife Through the Heart seems very familiar. Where did that idea come from?
Yeah, I've spent some time in the Golden Guy and love exploring it. I wandered through it on a sunny afternoon, and it was a totally different vibe than at night, and I can highly recommend it. Bar Knife Through the Heart's name is intentionally structured like a Japanese bar name, hence bar being at the start. The building is based off a conventional onsen in a Japanese town that is now a hard-off. The last 2 times we've been to Japan, I have made the pilgrimage to Bar Plastic Model in Golden Guy. This is the bar from No More Heroes and is thus very important.
One of the first characters you meet, Crimson Acid, is an idol. Do you have a favorite idol?
If you mean pop idol, I am currently a big fan of Atarashi Gakko. They make great music with really fun performances, and they've been doing these cool Japanese culture instructional videos on YouTube.
ザ・青春アカデミー。もしあなたが日本に来て電車に乗るならこのカードを買いましょう。
How did you develop Sam, the game's bartender and whiskey aficionado, as a character?
Sam was one of the last characters to be designed, and at that point I wanted us to have a character which showed how far our world stretches the rules of the real world. When it comes to his dialogue, I concentrated on finding a unique way of speaking for him, which is why he ends so many sentences and hypotheticals. At one point, every line of dialogue ended with a hypothetical, and it was extremely annoying, so it got toned down. As for his taste in whiskey, whiskey was something that kept coming up in the writing, and it made sense for him to be the focal point for that on the island. Blending flavors in whiskey is a lot like game design, so it's a useful analogy.
What do you think Sam's whiskey tastes like?
I imagine it tastes like Nika from the barrel. Very strong and full-bodied, but maybe with more smokiness.
What were some of your strongest experiences as a group in Japan?
All of our best experiences were us discovering somewhere new while just exploring. A shrine at night in Shinjuku, Mount Koya, and a cool little restaurant in Shibamata. One of the best nights we had there was having a big feast of food and drink in Torikizoku, then heading out to Kabukicho to sightsee places from the Yakuza games.
Deepest drink or overall Japanese culture cut that we might have missed?
The elusive chocolate is named after a type of bottled chocolate drink you can only get in very few vending machines. Phil had it on a trip to Japan, but only found it once. On our next trip together, we checked every machine to try to find it, but we only found it in a vending machine at the summit of Mount Takao in Tokyo. That's why it's called elusive, and in the vending machine on top of the mountain in Paradise Killer.
I want to thank Ollie for his time, and I cannot recommend this game enough. In a time where exploring new places is difficult and finding relaxation can almost not be an option, Paradise Killer is a chill, interesting, and sometimes truly strange experience. Pick it up, grab yourself a nice glass of Nika, and settle in for the most chill experience you'll ever have trying to find a murderer. Thanks for watching, and we hope to have another related video in the near future. Sorry that my voice is a little off this time around. See you around.